It is on its way.
Video games podcast. They're really good. We've done 49 of these. That's pretty impressive.
More than 49. Yeah. That's just counting the canon episodes.
Yeah.
It doesn't count last year's Game of the Year. It doesn't count Spoiler Cast.
Doesn't count this year's Game of the Year either.
Oh, it doesn't? Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. So we've been doing this for over a year now. We're old hats.
Yep.
We're media professionals.
I mean, we're making media and we're professionals in one sense, so.
I think of myself as a prosumer.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Should we just start the podcast? Just do it.
I don't know that you can be a prosumer. Given the amount that I have to talk about prosumers in my day job, I don't think you can talk about being a prosumer as a video game player. We're called early adopters.
Cat.
That's what you call a prosumer gamer.
Okay. Let's adopt this podcast early and get started with episode 9 of Gaming Fix.
We got like an hour.
We have 51 minutes. And we also have the whole crew except Andrew. So if you listen to the podcast, you know who that is. If you don't, that's Pat. He's waving.
Yeah.
That's great for this audio medium. Alison.
Hi.
Erica.
Hello.
I can see a cat in the background of Erica's video, so that's pretty good.
Banana.
No, it's a cat. And we have Alex.
I didn't know we were starting yet. Hi.
Yeah, I didn't know we were either.
I figured let's just go for it. Because Alison has 50 minutes. We've lost 60 seconds in intros.
I wasn't even going to ask you to do the full intro.
There you go. Alison, what have you been playing this week?
So formal.
Wow.
Wow, okay.
We're turning over a new leaf since Game
Well,
of the
you all mocked my hosting skills many years ago.
Yeah, like 10 years ago.
10 years ago, we mocked your hosting skills, and now it's a new leaf. Okay, so games that I've been playing. So since I haven't yet, but when it comes out on Switch, I will. So I took this chance with Game of the Year being done to play some older games, just because I don't have to think about things that are coming out recently. Now that we've set our list in stone. So first one that I've been playing is the Ace Attorney trilogy. I started this when I was having surgery a while back, but I just finished the first game and I'm in the middle of the second one. And I'm actually planning on picking up the other games in the series on the Nintendo eShop sale. So buying some new games for my 2DS, which is great. But those games are really good. And I was talking to my sibling last night about how I have this weird love for games that are like visual novels, but involve some sort of puzzle solving as well. And so Ace Attorney is kind of what got me kicked off on that, playing that. And I still love these games, even though I'm at the point where I'm replaying them and I go, oh yeah, I know what clue to use right here because I've played it before. And I've also played some of Katamari Damacy Reroll, which has been fun. It's basically just the first game remastered on Switch. While I'm playing it on Switch, and I love that game. It's one of my favorites, so it's been really fun to replay. But if you're hoping for new stuff from Reroll, there's nothing from what I've seen. So it is like, you want to play the first Katamari Damacy, then that's what you'll play. And also, quick, pulling a Pat and talking about a card game, which I played the Binding of Isaac card game last night, and it was really, really fun. I don't have a lot of as much board game or card game knowledge, but it was different enough from the actual video game that I was surprised, and it allowed for a lot of it simultaneously allowed for a lot of strategy, but also a lot of like options where you can completely change stuff around right away. So there's a lot of it felt like a very solid balance of randomness and strategy and just kind of chaos. Like there was one item where I was just like, I'm going to make you completely re-roll your entire character right now, basically. and there's a lot of stuff like that. So it's definitely an interesting one if you're into card games, but I'm a big Binding of Isaac fan, so it was very fun.
How much poop is in it?
Well, when I came across the poop card, I definitely was like, I need to send a picture because I feel like Alex should know that this exists. Not as much as in the video game.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's kind of to be expected. But it's kind of interesting because it's adapting a lot of items and monsters from the game into cards to be played with a card game. So it's kind of interesting to see how they adapted it and how they went from okay, this is going to be an enemy to this is going to be, or in the game to this is an enemy in the card game, and how do they kind of imply how this enemy worked in the video game. And I think they did a pretty good job of it.
How many players is it? Because the original game is obviously just one.
It's 2 to 4, I think. I feel like it says 2 to 4. I feel like you could probably fit in more because there's more characters, but I'm not 100%. I just played it with 2 last night with me and my sibling, but I'm hopefully can find some time where I can play it with more people and see how playing it with a larger group would be.
It looks interesting. It looks like it. Do you like flip a monster every turn and then you have to fight it? Is that the?
No, you actually constantly have like a couple spaces open for monsters. Like you start with 2 spaces and then you can, like we were able to expand it so we had 3 spaces. And so you don't have to fight a monster every turn, but you can choose to say, I'm going to fight a monster, or I'm going to fight one of the monsters that are up, or you can do the top of the deck. So you can just fight a random monster if you choose, which can be good or bad depending. And then, or you can just say, not this turn, and just try to. Yeah.
One of the this is going to alienate people from me, some people, but one of my least favorite games that exists in any medium is the game Munchkin. I hate that game. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it so much. It takes all that is good in the world of card games and makes me hate it. So look, based on the video that we're putting up now, this looks like a much more enjoyable kind of card game, sort of in that vein, in that in Munchkin you're also collecting treasure basically that is making you stronger to use to fight monsters. But any game that does that better than Munchkin is a win in my book. The other game I would recommend if you like that kind of style of card game is Bloodborne's card game. The Bloodborne card game is really cool. You need at least 3 people to play it, but the thing I love about the Bloodborne card game is that you're competing to be the best hunter, but you can't fight each other. But at the same time, everyone kind of picks the card they're going to use to fight the current monster secretly, and then you flip it at the same time, and it's different kinds of weapons and equipment. So you can kind of screw everybody over by saying like, nope, I'm not getting in on this one. And then everybody else takes damage from the monster and you don't, but then you also aren't getting rewards from fighting it. So I don't know. It's an interesting game, and Binding of Isaac, the card game, looks very good. My biggest problem with the video game has always been that the art style just is a big turnoff for me.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's really well designed. It's really just the art style. So that would be a hurdle for me in the card game, but I would absolutely give it a shot because the mechanics look really solid.
Right, and it's one of those things where like it is the art style is definitely there because it's all on each of the cards,
Right,
obviously.
yeah.
But I feel like I'd be interested to see if you could still kind of stomach it based off that, just because there's just by the virtue of you don't have to. The thing's animated, obviously, and you're not wandering through a dungeon that's full of disgusting stuff. Yeah.
I could put up with a lot for good mechanics. There's a similar card game called Warhammer Quest that came out several years ago now. Fantasy Flight did. Their partnership with Warhammer went under, so the person that designed the mechanics for it licensed the mechanics to this online Twitter account guy that does Twitter jokes and art, and it's all like very, very toilety humor about like Game of Thrones and stuff. It was not good. The game was called Epic AF. That tells you some of the tone that we're talking about.
Man.
And I still back that Kickstarter because I love the mechanics of the game so much. So I can put up with some pretty shitty theme if the game is really good. Thankfully, the end of that story is that Kickstarter, this part is not thankful. Not happy for people stuff failing, but the Kickstarter failed sadly, but then the designer was able to take it to Fantasy Flight and they redid it with non-Warhammer, with their sort of in-house fantasy IP. So,
well, if it helps, this conversation's really helped me with my Secret Santa gift for you, Pat. So I've just put in a quick order.
oh God, there's nothing that's like, oh, that's my way of my way of alienating the other. I don't know. Maybe the Munchkin people are the same as the Rick and Morty people.
Yeah, I think that's the same.
I don't like Rick and Morty either. But I'm not saying you're bad if you like Munchkin or Rick and Morty. They're just not for me.
But that's exactly what he's saying, is that you're bad.
Yeah. Speaking of bad, Alison, now in Binding of Isaac, there's a lot of themes. Are those themes carried across to the card game?
I don't know. I haven't.
Mother and child abortion stuff going on.
I haven't seen a lot of that yet, but granted, there are a whole lot of cards, so it's one of those things where like there's like we played a full game and the game like our game lasted like they say 30 to 60 minutes, but ours lasted like over an hour, and I still feel like we only saw like a handful of the cards, so it could be there's more. However, it does on several of the cards that don't need as much text, they just like fit in the weirdest Bible verses on there, and it kind of fits that little kind of biblical theme that they sometimes throw into the Binding of Isaac. So it was kind of fun to just read some of them and be like, what are you putting on these cards?
It's a weird thing with card and board games that emulate, like that come from specific source material. Oftentimes the message of that source material is lost in translation. It's definitely true of the Bloodborne card game. For anyone who hasn't played it, I won't spoil it, but Bloodborne has some really interesting themes deeper in that game as to the nature of who your character is. And all of that is completely lost on the card game. It is just kill monsters. That tends to happen a lot when heavier theme, other stuff, comic books, video games, whatever, gets translated to board and card games. There's like a This War of Mine board game, I think, that I've always wanted to check out because I've been curious if they've been able to translate the themes of that game to a board game.
Okay. Speaking of translating, Alex, you've been watching an anime?
I have.
I understand.
I have been doing this.
Dubs or subs?
Subs, of course.
Dubs. I like dubs.
You're on drugs.
I finally changed over. I used to not like subs at all, but it sounds better.
It does.
I will watch subs, but like if there's a good dub available, there is 0% chance of me watching.
I think there are good dubs, especially the Ghibli dubs. Those are really good.
Cowboy Bebop's great. Attack on Titan's great.
Yeah, I don't know. I find it weird when you got people in English identifying people as Chan or Kun and stuff like that. It's bizarre.
That's kind of why I just supported a Kickstarter to get a dub for one of my favorite anime, or my favorite anime, which is Emma, a Victorian Romance, and it is.
Oh, that, yeah.
And I love that show, and I love the manga, and it's one of those things where it's like, this is set in the UK. You'd think that you'd want a dub, and that would make the most sense.
Yeah.
But they're only just getting it now. So.
Japanese Europe is its own thing. But yeah, no, I've been watching Sword Art Online.
Yeah, that's a good show.
So no, it isn't. Not the original show. The original show is terrible. So let me tell you my history with this series. The original show I watched probably in like 2011ish, maybe 2012. I can't remember. Because my friends and I were bored in college, and we're like, we've heard people talking about this show. Let's check it out. So we watched it, and the first half was interesting. Like, it was a really, really interesting concept, executed extremely poorly. And then the second half was just hot ass. Like, it was just terrible. Like, oh, it was so bad. Like, ugh. And then in 2014, the second season came out, and people were like, oh, you need to watch it. You need to watch it. So I did. I watched it as it was airing, and then got to the end of episode 14, which is the end of the first arc. And I was like, that was okay. And then I dropped it. I was just like, I'm not even going to finish this season because it doesn't seem worth it.
Doo-doo.
Yeah, it's hot doo-doo. It's like, I went back and looked at how I rated it. Like, this first season I rated a 5, and the second season I rated a 6 upon dropping. Like,
Out of 5, or
out of 10, because it's fucking terrible. Like, the themes are so
That
like the
sounds
writing.
average to me.
yeah.
The writing is so bad. Like, it just falls back on such terrible tropes, like harem stuff, and like it's really weirdly rapey, and like it's not good. Like, it's I don't know.
There's like multiple incest storylines, aren't there?
Oh yes, there's multiple.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's just not good. Like, it was written in 2001, and you can tell. So I dropped it in 2014, and I was like, yeah, I'm done with this. And then, so I still frequent online boards and stuff like that for anime, and people keep talking about the new season that's airing right now, being like, yeah, so this secretly might be really good. And I was like, I don't believe you. I've seen the rest of Sword Art. That's a lie. And then I've been watching that week by week, and then people were saying when episode 10 had aired, like, this is kind of like Made in Abyss. And I was like, what? What the fuck what does that mean? So I was like, okay, fine, I'll watch it. What is this? So I went back and kind of finished the second season, because I was like, well, if it's the third season, probably need that continuity. And surprisingly, the rest of the second season was actually really good. Like, it had a little 2 or 3 episode arc that was kind of shitty, but its last arc was actually really like heartfelt and interesting, and had a strong female protagonist like for 80 to 90% of it. And like, I was like, oh, 4 years later, that's actually all right. And then started watching this new season, and it's actually really good. Like, it's like, I would say it's actually like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 good. Like, the writing is good. The action is good. Like, it's animated extremely well. The story is super interesting. The characters are good. Like, I was caught really off guard. I was like, what the fuck? Why is this show good? And I could see
Is it
the
like
Made in
Made in
Abyss. Yeah, I could see the Made in Abyss thing, because like, it's very adventure-y, and there's like a body horror scene with like lots of blood and like limbs being cut off with lots of like graphic detail and stuff like that. I was like, oh, what the fuck? So yeah, that show's surprisingly good, and I'm gonna continue it. So like, yeah, as someone who thought the original show was hot ass and terrible and not worth your time, this is actually really good.
I like that in the new setup where we're using Zoom, you can see everyone's camera, because when you said body horror, Pat started paying attention to the camera again. Looking on screen, then you
What
said
actually-
horror, and he
What
went,
actually happened was my coffee machine made a bunch of noise, and I was like, what is it doing? Please stop making noise. And then it just so happened that it stopped making noise. Alex said body horror, but that's still on brand for me.
Yeah.
So as somebody who actually liked the first season of Sword Art Online, I should probably watch this, right?
I would say finish the second season if you haven't, because they do a lot of callbacks. Like
And it'll
without,
make you not like Sword Art Online anymore.
Is the
yeah,
second season the gun one?
yes,
Gun Online.
yep.
Because it felt like season 1 was actually 2 seasons, because there's a like definitive stop point in the middle.
That show is so bad. It has such a good concept, and it's like, oh man, this like, oh, you're trapped in an MMO and like you're gonna die. Cool. That should take up the whole season, but no, they wrap it up by episode 12.
It's
Yeah,
not
episode 12, and then episode 13, they're like, there's another MMO.
Yeah.
the thing about Sword Art that pissed me off is my friends got really excited about it. And I guess I don't know which happens when, or like which came out when, but I know in our timeline, my friends got really excited about it and got really excited about like this unique, interesting, cool new thing. It looks like it does actually predate it, but I was really into Dot Hack when that came over, and it looks like Dot Hack came out in 2002, so it's actually a year behind Sword Art.
Mhm.
But all of my friends were talking about how fantastic Sword Art was when it first came out, and I was like, y'all, this is bad. Dot Hack is actually good.
Yo,
Also, I feel like they've really missed the bullet by not calling it Gun Art Online for season 2.
it's so
like-
close though. It's Gun Gale Online.
Yeah,
So close.
it's Sword Art Online 2, Gun Gale Online or
See, if
something.
it had been based on Guns the Duel, then I would have totally been all over it.
Yeah, I know it's really good though. Also, I've been playing one game that I think will appeal to Erica and probably everyone else to a lesser degree. It's called Simon's Cat Pop Time. So if you're familiar with the webcomic / video series Simon's Cat, it's that IP, but with like Puzzle Bobble / like Candy Crush kind of stuff, but like with really good mechanics, and the free to play is not very obtrusive. So if you're bored and want a phone game, I would say Simon's Cat Pop Time is actually really good.
Downloading it right now.
Erica is always bored and always wants a phone game.
Yeah. Like it has a couple free
You're
play
not wrong.
things that are like, it has a couple like stoppers that are kind of bleh, but like it's not that bad. It's
I
fun.
bought Twinfold, and I feel like I'm not allowed to buy any other mobile games or play any other mobile games until I play the one that I purchased with real money.
I have weird feelings about Twinfold. We could talk about it sometime.
I played like 20 minutes of it, and I was like, I don't think I actually like it.
Yeah, it might be where I'm at. I played like a half hour of it around the same amount of time. I don't know that I like it either.
But something that I do like is talking about video games. Erica, have you been playing anything this week?
So I woke up this morning to a message that we were moving this podcast by like a whole bunch of hours. So I was like, oh, shit, I gotta play a video game. So I
It's
played.
impressive that you woke up in time for it, given that.
Yeah.
I wake up early, thankfully. But I played about an hour of Dusk. Actually, a
Mhm.
little less than an hour. I kind of went the opposite route of Allison and decided to play something new because apparently December's been a really good month for video games. So, but yeah, it's really good. It's very much it's a first person shooter, very much in the style of like Quake and Doom and things like that. But I don't have a ton of experience with those, so I'm probably the worst person on this podcast to be talking about it, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So it's I've seen like a lot of people comparing it to Redneck Rampage, but I know nothing about that
Really?
at all.
That game
So
is weird.
yeah.
Dusk is weird.
Dusk is weird. I'm very, very early into it. But it seems like everything's kind of possessed by demons and you're kind of just killing everything. And what's cool about it is, or so far anyway, I've been liking the level design. I've talked to my husband about it, who has beat the game already, and he says that like it gets crazy with the level design, and that's what makes this game good. So I'm looking forward to seeing how crazy it goes. The soundtrack is like a really excellent metal soundtrack. I don't care for metal at all, and I'm really hot on it anyway. And yeah, I don't know. It's cool. It looks like, you know, those games. It looks like a Quake. It looks like a Doom, and it's super fun to play, and it's like it feels nice.
Yeah. I was surprised that game was made in Unity. Like
Yeah.
kind of similar to Oberdin. Like they wrote all their own shaders to make it look like that old school
Yeah.
style.
Because it's super Quake. The feel is there even, which it's impressive that they were able to recreate that in Unity. I mean, it doesn't feel like it was made in the Quake engine necessarily, but it's as close to that as you can get without being there. It's super cool. It's the beginning of that game is like so good too, because you start it and it's like, I forgot what it says, like kill your captors or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And you just have these two like sickle things, and there's 3 guys coming at you with chainsaws, and you just have to circle strafe around them and hack them to death with sickles. And it takes a long time.
It takes forever. I was like, oh no, is this what this whole game is?
But then you pick up a gun and you start shooting people, and it's very enjoyable. Yeah. I really like how claustrophobic some of the environments are.
Yeah, definitely. Like, some of them are really tight.
Yeah, and the first level you're in like fields and farmhouses, and the houses are built like houses. They're not like in early Doom, and it's understandable why, and in like Wolfenstein and Wolf 3D and stuff. And even in Quake, the rooms are kind of like you go into them and they're way bigger than a real room would be, because it's a video game and like everything's scaled weird.
Mm-hmm.
But in this game, it's like when you're walking around the houses, it's like, nope, there's no room. When a guy comes running down the hallway with a chainsaw at you, he's like right there. Yeah. And it feels like it's the scale of a real place. That kind of goes out the window later on because you go to some very not real places. But yeah, that game is super cool. The enemy design, the placements, the level design, it's all just super good.
Yeah, like the last level I played right before I got on here, I remembered thinking it was like extremely claustrophobic, and I didn't realize it until I had like a horde of like possessed rats coming at my feet, and like there was just like a ton of them, and there was just kind of nowhere for me to go, and they can go upstairs, so you can't like go up somewhere high and then shoot down or anything because there's kind of nowhere to go. And so you're just like running around in like the smallest circle trying to get away from them and shoot behind you, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I really like about this game that like is that there's a lot of there's varying difficulty levels. Like I don't it's the end of the year. I'm tired. I don't want to play a super hard game right now. So I have the option, and it doesn't make fun of you for it. Like one of my favorite games last year was Wolfenstein 2, but I was like annoyed that if I wanted to play it on easy, they're going to put like a pacifier in my mouth and make me feel bad about it, you know? like, but this one, it like they call like their easiest mode accessible. And I think I played it on like the second easiest, which I think was like go easy or something. And it was actually maybe a little too easy. Like I might bump it up a little bit, but yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it's still the same game. It's just they drop more health all the time. But
cool.
Yeah, it's a good game. You guys should play it.
The game has
Alex,
pads.
You shouldn't play it. Alex, you should super not play it.
Why?
I heard some things about what's coming, and you're not gonna like the themes.
Oh, but I love Quake.
Then play it. But just
I mean, it's a cosmic horror game. That's not, you can see that on the Steam page. If the stuff that's on the Steam page doesn't bother you, then you'll be fine, I think. But it's definitely got like cosmic horror elements where you're dealing with ancient deities and stuff. But
just saying, if you were maybe bothered by Oberdin.
I wasn't bothered. I was just rolling my eyes.
Okay.
I think this game is less story focused.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it is. Then you should play it.
What have you been playing then, Pat?
Well, I played kind of a smorgasbord of the stuff that's come out this month because I bought Dusk because I knew I wanted to play that, and it was on launch sale. And then I have Game Pass, so I touched on like Mutant Year Zero and Ashen and Below, which are all really cool in different ways. But the thing that I spent the most time on this week was earlier in the year, I started playing Fire Emblem for Game Boy Advance, the first one. I actually started it kind of hot on the heels in January of our Game of the Year discussions because we talked about Fire Emblem Warriors a lot around that time because Sam was a big fan of it.
Very good video game.
Yeah, and I kind of, rather than run out and play that specific game, the conversation got me thinking, like, I should really play Fire Emblem because I don't know how I went through my life not knowing this, but I wasn't aware that Intelligent Systems did both Fire Emblem and Advance Wars. So I've basically been crowing about getting a new Advance Wars since like the DS launched, the original DS launched, and I had no idea that, like, I spent all that time going, what is that team doing? Did they just disappear? I did not realize that they were the same developers as Advance Wars, which kind of comes from the fact that Nintendo's studios sort of, it says their name on their games, but it's not like other, it's not like Sony and Microsoft where they get their studio branding out there in the same ways. But I finally learned that that was the case and decided that I should definitely play them then. And I've been I enjoyed the first, 23 hours of that game earlier in the year and then finished it this week. That game's really good. Like, it still holds up. I played it, I emulated it just because I didn't want to dig out my I think my hardware's with my mother. I've owned that game in the past, even though I never really played it because I used to get loads of cartridges at GameStop near the tail end of the Game Boy Advance's lifetime. But the nice thing about emulating it as a first Fire Emblem game to play is that you can heavily utilize save states, which, as I understand it from all the people that are big time Fire Emblem players that I've run into, pretty much everybody save scums in those games anyway because they're so that they put so much character into each of the characters. So them dying is rough. And then also specifically with that game, I don't know how much this changes in the later games, but like you don't get that many units. So if one of them dies, you could be totally screwed for a later level. And there's no way to like fix it after you've moved past the mission. So with save states, it allows you to like really, really try dumb stuff just to see how it goes and really understand the systems, which is pretty neat. But I really like the way that game, I liked, given that it was a Game Boy Advance game from a while ago, I really liked the story in it. I thought it was impressive compared to other stuff from the time. And then just the gameplay is very satisfying, and it's very, it falls into the trap that some tactics games now still fall into, where later in the game you have to solve the puzzle of how do I kill this thing in one turn, because if it gets a turn, it will kill me. And I'm talking with like maxed out high-end characters. Even there are some bosses in that game that will kill them in one hit. So that can be a little bit frustrating at times, because it's like, okay, I guess I have to use a ranged unit on them, because there's no way to really grind out specific stats. Like, if you're fighting a magic user, you kind of have to use very specific characters on them, because you need characters with a high resistance stat, etc. So sometimes that can be a little tedious, but otherwise, that's an awesome game, and I highly recommend checking it out. I actually already finished that, and then started the Sacred Stones, which is the second Game Boy Advance one. But if anyone's interested in Fire Emblem and has always been like, it's too daunting, there's too much to play, which is where I was at, there's a phenomenal, if you just Google what Fire Emblem game should I play first or something to that effect, you'll get a Reddit thread that'll pop up that has a really, really, really good guide to where every Fire Emblem game sits in their different storylines. There's like 4 different main stories that each have like 1 to 4 games associated with them. So there's a lot of very good jumping on points. Like Shadow Dragon for the DS is good because it's a remake of the very first one, but it's hard. Fire Emblem 7, the Game Boy one that I played, is very good because it's the first Western release, and it's very beginner friendly, but that's part of just like a 2-part series. The second part was never released in the West. The second GBA game is kind of its own standalone thing. And then there's like the Fates series, and it's interesting how they all tie together. So that was the main thing that I played. And Allison, you played, you like Fire Emblem games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I honestly think that, like, I feel like they're all fairly relatively accessible, especially the ones that have gotten releases, like, pretty publicized releases here. So I do think I really liked the first 2 Game Boy Advance ones. I think those are both really good. But then also, I feel like Awakening and Fates are both really good. And I haven't played a whole bunch of other ones, but I think it's real. I think they're accessible and they're very fun. And I'm with you on the save scumming and I lost a character, time to reset the entire thing. And that for me is Fire Emblem. And so now in later games, they have an option where you can play it so that you get all your characters back at the end of the game. But for me, I'm like, no, that's not Fire Emblem. That's not Fire Emblem for me. I have to be able to, like,
you want to be able to like physically reset the thing.
Yes.
It's like part of
reset the console so that I can then start a whole new battle. And it's annoying, but that's for me what Fire Emblem is. But if that's not for you, then like Awakening and Fates is a little bit more accessible.
I will say I was surprised the ending of that game is long. It's like 30 minutes long to like when you kill the last boss to when it says Finn on the screen and you don't have to look at anything else, because it's like there's like 10 minutes of talking after you beat the boss and 5 minutes of cutscene and then an epilogue that sets up the game that it is a prequel to that never came out here. And by the end of it, I was like, I want to go to bed. I've been watching people talk. It was one thing on my computer screen, and then in the like cutscene parts, you can't advance the dialogue by pressing A. You just have to let them go. It takes forever, and I was just sitting here like, oh my god, if I was playing this on Game Boy, imagine if you were on the train or something. Get off the train. But it's a good game.
Yeah.
Go back.
I mean, I played it on OG Game Boy, which had 0 light, so
yeah.
Imagine that.
Man, you just blew my mind, Pat, with
what?
Saying it said Finn. Now, like, as a French person, I'm like, oh, wait, so when the end of a movie or something comes up, do you just picture, like, dolphin fins? Or, like, whale fins?
No, I mean, I just know what the word means.
Yeah.
And in this case, I didn't mean that as that's how I think of everything. Fire Emblem does say Finn in the corner when it's all done and there's nothing left for you to watch. That is its kill screen, as it were.
That's great.
But yeah, I don't know. I've always just known what Finn means. I'm sure there's people out there that don't.
Someone listens to this podcast going,
I'll also say very briefly that Below is very cool. I would recommend against it unless you are looking for what it very specifically does, which is give you a weird roguelike with lots of mysterious stuff and zero explanation as to how to play it. I played it for like 6 hours at least over last weekend and was like super all the way in, and then I died on a pretty deep level for where I was at, level 6, which is not that deep in the whole game, but it was the deepest that I had gotten. I died because a weird scary looking monster thing came out of the dark and like waving its arms and screaming at me, and it killed me in like 2 hits, and I didn't know what was happening. And then so like my dead body was sitting on floor 6, and I was like, oh god, okay, so it had like a full inventory of stuff, so I got to go get it, and I got to be very careful. And then on floor 2, I stepped on a spike trap and died. So everything that I had on my floor 6 body went away. And I was incredibly frustrated. So I just kind of put it down and haven't gone back yet. So that aspect is definitely there, and you should go in expecting that. And it's an interesting conundrum because you need to be very well equipped to stab at deeper floors in the dungeon. But when I do think my biggest criticism of it is that when you do die, you have to go get not only your body, but your lantern. And the lantern is really the thing that helps you to not do things like step on spike traps. And it does kind of suck to play without the lantern. It's like you have torches you can use, but the lantern gives traps and stuff a red outline, whereas the torches don't. They just light up the area. So you still have to like identify that that's a spike trap. So when you play with the torches, you still have to move at a snail's pace, and it is a little frustrating. I do kind of wish that they didn't take the lantern from you when you died and just your stuff, because that doesn't feel significant on the early levels, but when you get further down, like to get back without the lantern is hell. But otherwise, that game is really cool. I think it controls and feels really, really good. I think the character feels good enough to control that even though the enemies are kind of samey until you get deeper down, it works. And I recommend it for anybody that is really into roguelikes in general.
Okay. So this week I have mostly been playing a couple of Sega-produced video games. Valkyria Chronicles 4, which I'm currently playing for review. I put it to one side for Game of the Year, so it's nice to pick that back up. I played about 4 hours this morning, so I'm really enjoying where I'm getting to it. The conversations are good, the characters are really good, and I think it's a more interesting story maybe than the first Valkyria Chronicles. So the first one is all kind of like, ooh, the mysterious Imperial war machine has like magic troopers, and like there's maybe some sort of god involved and like things like that. Whereas this one is like, that's like super.
I'm kidding.
This one is like, okay, you guys are the best unit to come out of the military training school for teenagers that exists in Japanese Europe, and you are going to go behind enemy lines with a whole big army and try and hit their capital to stop them, to get them to bring their troops out of the country they're invading. So in the first game, you're protecting the country that's being invaded, and then in this game, in 4, it's set at the exact same time, and you're in this parallel mission that's trying to save the characters from the first game, almost. All the characters are super interesting. There's been a little bit of anime lecherousness, but only from one character, and he's constantly physically abused for it. So there's a bit where he tries to touch a woman's butt, and she just knocks him out. And like, he's meant to be the hard-ass, big, rough and tough soldier. And also, they play into the fact that a lot of them know each other from their childhood, and he used to bully his commanding officer as a child, to the point which he bullied him so much he joined the army. So some interesting stuff. I really like a couple of the minor characters, maybe more than the main characters. There's a doctor who's obsessed with dissecting people and really wants to dissect a person, but she's been conscripted into the army as a scout, and anytime she gets like near a dead body, or like anytime she kills someone and then goes in for like, or like shoots someone up close, she's like, dissection opportunity flashes up on screen as like one of her random abilities.
Weird.
And there's a guy called Jester who just loves gambling but is really bad at it, and he has a whole gambling side story where the crazy doctor and the guy who's trying to write a novel convince him to sell one of his organs to pay his gambling debts, and then like they're like, yeah, well, you know, we'll take some more organs while we're in there, that'll just cover all your debts. And he's like, no, no. And he runs off into a battle, and then a battle starts. It's really stupid. But yeah, they will have like, there's a character also called Gene Matrix. Yeah.
That's really funny.
She's a Lancer, and she has a giant rocket launcher that's taller than she is,
Sure.
and like waist-length dreadlocks, and she just like roams around this field with this giant thing. And when she kills stuff, she does like super typical generic American military stuff, like go "Hoorah!" and nail.
Wow.
So I think that she's a Commando reference. Yeah, so there's a lot of personality in all these extremely minor characters, which is really cool. It's very, very similar to Fire Emblem in that way. Something that I don't remember at all from the first Valkyria Chronicles. Like, I remember the two main characters in that game, and that's it. Whereas, like, the main character in this game is semi-forgettable, apart from the fact that his name is Claude. Yeah, also, I've been playing this other small game that I don't think any of you guys have heard of. It's called Yakuza 6.
Don't know what that is.
What?
Yeah.
The second best game of 2018.
So, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about that when I finished it. I'm only on like chapter 3 or 4 or something at the moment. I just met the new Tojo Clan guys and White Suit Man, who is like shady as fuck. So I'm going to carry on playing that game. Valkyria Chronicles has to take precedent because the review's kind of coming up due at some point soon.
Sure.
I wanted to get a few hours under my belt this week while I had a lot of free time. But also, how many minutes have we got? We've got 6 minutes left of our 1 hour podcast. I have been reading some comics, and I want to talk about them extremely briefly because this isn't a comic book podcast.
It's not an anime podcast either.
So there is it's kind of an independent publisher. So independent in terms of the comics industry means not Marvel, not DC. So there's an independent publisher called Valiant. They used to be owned by Acclaim, so that's a fun video game link.
There you go. You can talk about it on the show then.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, but Acclaim is terrible. Are the comics good?
Yeah, the comics are extremely good. Okay. So Acclaim, basically, the reason that Acclaim bought them was that they used to do all the comics for the WWE and all of Acclaim's video games. So if Acclaim made a video game, Valiant would do like a tie-in comic for it. They had a long-standing contract. And Acclaim were like, why are we paying them money for this when we can just buy them because we've got loads of money? And then Acclaim massively went under, and roughly around the same time, the speculator boom busted for comic books. So Valiant died in the mid-90s. And they were revived in, I think, 2012. Yeah, 2012, they were revived. So they came out and they were like, we're going to do character-first comics. We're going to pick only like really good writers that we're like, we've got faith in, and we're going to have consistent art and writing teams, which is something you kind of don't get as much in comics. So they brought out a few to start with. Exo Man of War, which is what if Conan the Barbarian was Iron Man?
What if?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Harbinger, which is kind of like X-Men, but like you have in order to be a mutant, you have to be way more fucked up. You have to have something extremely, extremely horrible happen to you in 90% of cases. And it's like a team book where this guy, he's like incredibly super powerful, and he's recruited by this kind of shadowy organization, and they're like, yeah, we'll train you up, we'll teach you how to be a superhero, you'll go save the world. And then he finds out that actually the shadow organization is evil, and they're trying to take over the world, not save it. So that's pretty cool. There's a comic called Bloodshot, which is basically what if Wolverine was also the Punisher.
What if?
That's pretty good.
Wolverine kind of is the Punisher, though.
Yeah, but like it's basically it's this guy. And also, what if both of those characters were RoboCop?
What if?
Yeah, it's an extremely cool concept for a comic. But basically, this guy is an artificially created like robot person, and the government would send him out to do rough shit and implant memories in him of having a wife and child, so that he would have a reason to want to do awful stuff. And one day he's like, "Wait a second, these wife and children aren't real," and like goes on the run and tries to like find out who he is and what's going on and whether he ever was a real person.
So it's also Total Recall.
Kind of, yeah. It's pretty good.
So they just
It's the weakest of the ones that I've read, but even that is still like pretty high quality.
So they watched a bunch of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies and they're like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, it's very like violence, fun, action porn. Like a lot of cool shit happens. Cool shit with like capital C, capital S.
With a trademark logo at the end.
Yeah.
Sick.
Then probably Archer and Armstrong, which I feel like is the most like that's the one that would probably appeal to most of the people here. Archer and Armstrong are so Archer, to start with the first character, was raised in a creationist theme park by fundamentalist Christian right whack jobs, one of which is a senator and one of which is a reverend. And he was raised along with 20 adopted brothers and sisters. He doesn't swear, he doesn't drink, he doesn't believe in premarital sex. He was taught always to do the right thing, to open the doors for people, and also to murder, because all of them were taught to be super assassins. And they were all trained from birth to kill this one person as an immortal man who they call He Who Shall Not Be Named. And that character is Armstrong, the other character in the book. Armstrong is an immortal man who's like 11,000 years old. He was one of 3 immortal brothers. The other 2 are like, one like travels through time trying to fix time. The other one is like this super warrior that protects the earth. And Armstrong's like, well, I didn't actually have a mission or anything I wanted to do. So he just parties for like 10,000 years, just gets really drunk all the time and starts fights and has a lot of sex. And so he's the exact opposite of Archer. And it's like, Archer goes to find and kill him. And like, Armstrong's like, oh, you think I'm evil? Let me tell you about your parents. And then they team up to take his parents down.
You know what this sounds like? It sounds like, I don't know, this will be weird, but it sounds like the second Tomb Raider game, Rise of the Tomb Raider.
I have not seen that.
If any of you guys played that.
Watch that, you wouldn't play that. It's super weird. It's basically like every conspiracy theory, like every popular conspiracy theory is true, and Armstrong knows about it because he was there, and they're like going through all of them. So like there's one whole section where they go to Area 51 and they see a grey alien walking around and Armstrong just punches it in the face. Like, it's very, very weird and over the top, and like it's intentionally a comedy, but it does have some really good story beats. So yeah, Archer and Armstrong I would heartily recommend. All the others are good, and they all kind of subtly tie into each other. Like Bloodshot and Harbinger are basically like 2 halves of the same book because they deal with a lot of the same storyline. But like all the others are you could read without knowing anything about them. Most of Exo Man of War takes place in like 500 AD so far. But yeah, it's super good. I'd recommend Valiant Comics to anyone. We've hit our hour time cap.
Yes.
I went over, but still, so yeah, I'd recommend Valiant to anyone. I'm currently reading Shadow Man by them too.
I forgot to mention Artifact added progression and free packs that you can earn for playing.
Mhm.
They also changed the way that they're balancing cards. Before they said they weren't going to do this, but they're buying back cards after they tweak them. You think that they suck. So
Huh.
more reasons why Artifact is a great game. And
The fact that you can get free packs means I'll probably play it again now.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in trying it out.
it is still not free to play. However, you can earn
Right.
packs in the game.
Yeah. Like the fact that you could only buy packs after also having bought into that game was probably the bit that annoyed me the most.
Yeah, we'll see. I hope it doesn't screw up the way that they're keeping it from screwing up the marketplace is you can only earn a certain number of packs per season. So it's not like Hearthstone where you can earn an unlimited amount of packs. The biggest problem with free packs in that game is that like having a black hole of stuff that spits money into the economy without a cost associated to it can really screw with the value of certain cards. But given that they're capping it at 15 packs per season, that might solve that problem.
Cool. I might play Magic the Gathering Arena, Pat.
I like that game a lot too. So it's tough because I like both of those games very much, and Magic Arena is like the best iteration of Magic online. We'll put it this way, they're two of the three best card games in my opinion ever made. So like trying to choose which one to play is tough. Because
And the third best one is Rick and Morty Munchkin.
Oh God. Oh God.
Does anyone else
That's
have
like-
any... Oh, sorry, Harry.
It's like someone saying to Alex the Sword Art Online is the best anime ever made. Okay, let's end this podcast.
But yeah, thanks everyone for listening to the podcast. That was a nice, good, short, quick one. So if you have been listening for a while and you're like, why don't all my friends listen to this podcast? This is a good one to give them because they can get a beginning, middle, and end pretty quickly.
I think they should listen to the 8-hour podcast we did last weekend.
Yeah, then make them listen to that straight afterwards, and make sure you stare them in the eyes the whole time while they listen.
Yeah, that's the most important part.
If there's
And
anything
trick
you
shot
should do,
anytime anyone says Yakuza 6.
Or Forgotten Anne.
Anytime Forgotten Anne gets cut
No,
from the cat, you pour one out
yeah, exactly. You pour out a shot.
into your friend's mouth / eyes. Thanks everyone for listening. Andre's not here this week, which is why you're back to the second string. Bad segues. That's good. All right.
He was
Let's end this podcast
that,
before it goes. Then.
that man was awake for like 40 hours yesterday.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
on for a real long time.
And
That's how I felt at the end of the Game of the Year podcast. I can't sleep in, so I was up at like 7 a.m. that day.
Yep.
Yeah, but you weren't on planes the whole time. Not that I'm not sympathetic.
And I did eat a lot of pizza during the podcast while we were recording.
Hell yeah.
They don't serve pizza on planes.
What?
Not even on international flights.
Why?
Oh, that sucks.
No.
I feel like the only food available on planes should be pizza. It's easy to eat. You can use your hands.
It probably wouldn't smell great.
yeah, that'd be rough.
Pizza smells very good though.
Yeah, but pizza smells good because if you order a pizza that has things on it that you think smell good,
But everyone gets cheap pizza.
sure, I'm fine with that. I wouldn't want to sit on a plane where there's like sausage pizzas everywhere because, like, to me, that smells gross.
Yeah.
Everyone gets cheese. That's it.
That's fine with me. All right, we'll start a new airline.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Cheese Pizza Airline.
Pizza Air.
Pizza. Yeah.
We've done an extraordinarily poor job of ending the podcast.
Thanks everyone for listening. You can find us all on the internet pretty easily. Pat, how would you like people to interact with you? On the World Wide Web?
You can get your interactions in on Twitter, or you can find me at JesterPC.
Alison.
You can also find me on Twitter at WRITERSERENYTY.
Or you could just go into who Pat and I follow and like tweet from. if you can't remember how to spell that afterwards.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Also Twitter at Erica AIREHCUH.
Alex?
You can find me at myanimelist.net/animelist/momspaghetti.
I will. You can find me on the gram, but also on Twitter at SGCH. You can find me on most social networks at SGCH.
Is on the gram a real thing?
Oh God, yes.
What? Am I out of touch?
Yes, you
Fuck.
It's
are.
'cause you're not on the gram, are you, Alex?
No.
Oh, there you go.
I'm on the pound.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone should Google fake gram sponsors Instagram or fake brand sponsors Instagram. Because it's fucked up. That platform should get nuked from the earth.
I love Instagram though, so please don't. How else will I share pictures of my cats? Thanks everyone for listening. We'll speak to you next week.
Bye.
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 Such a clinical podcast. I love it.
Look, it's got to be started. It's got to be finished, and somebody's going to do it. It was me this time. Axel, enjoy your movie.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.